Can you hear me now? Yes. There are a couple of things I need to say before we start and before I invite speakers from our forum to speak. The first thing is that this council meeting is now being recorded and will be live streamed on council's webpage for public information. You can find that on our website, so that's a new thing that we do here now. This is our second time at that, so that'll be interesting for everybody. If you have a mobile phone on you, please turn it off or to silent. I don't want anyone's phones ringing in the middle of the sessions. Now, where are we? All present today are reminded that by speaking, you are agreeing to your view and your comments being recorded and published. You are also reminded that if and when speaking, you are to be respectful of others and use appropriate language. If, when there are speakers here making their presentation and I hear an audible sound, I will stop the meeting and I will ask that person to leave the chamber and the room, because I'm not going to have people interrupting or being rude or whatever. So that's just a warning. We have security here to take care of that, so that's what will happen. There won't be any excuses and there won't be a second chance either. Greater Hume accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures during this meeting. And I remind councillors, when they're speaking, that they press the button and wait till it turns red and then start speaking, because it's not recording until this is on. So I don't want you to miss your chance on the screen. So yes, check that red button is ready to go. So where are we? Now we have a number of speakers, and I'd ask Janice Beasley to please come forward up here. Janice, can you turn that on? Councillor Meyer, can you turn it on, please? Perfect, thank you. Now you have 5 minutes. But just a reminder to all of you, you'll have 4 minutes 30. Marg will ding the bell and then you'll have 30 seconds after that. So welcome and thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and councillors. Speaking on behalf of the Burrumbuttock Rec Ground, we're seeking financial assistance for the remaining of the $150,000 from the Drought Communities program to water our playing surface. I question why only 4 towns received money from the assistance, going to Culcairn, Henty, Holbrook and Gindra. What about the other towns in our shire? Why couldn't every town in the shire receive council funding, especially given the smaller towns are 100% rural? Isn't the drought the same in the whole shire? If the drought program is about benefiting a community in drought, wouldn't a benefit be a green oval which will meet all OH&S requirements to proceed with the upcoming season? Doesn't the council have a duty of care to the condition of the sporting ovals, which is used by the sporting clubs, school children and morning walkers? Approximate numbers that use our facilities: we have football and netball, as per most ovals, of about 750 people, tennis club of about 80, cricket club 150, the public school and PWSA about 100, pigeon club 12 members, exercise classes, mothers groups, and we also hold a community dinner at Christmas time where we receive, where about 80 people are present. And also we have walkers using our facilities. At Burrumbuttock, we only water our oval prior to the commencement of the football netball season due to the cost of water being too expensive. Burrumbuttock Rec Ground Committee installed, maintains and finances our own watering system and all oval upgrades by way of community volunteers. Is that not standard practice throughout the shire? At the beginning of the football netball season last year, we spent $7,871 plus volunteer time and expense to repair our sprinkler system and resew the oval. as well as $8,648 on water. And this is more than our annual allocation from council. Burrumbek Rec Ground Committee repeatedly receives praise from the council mowing staff in regard to the condition of the surrounds, especially as far as litter is concerned. We do care about our facilities and take pride in its appearance. If funds were available, Burrumbek would consider sinking a board to use the water for the oval. The estimated expense of this project is about $68,000. In conclusion, we are not asking for our oval to be upgraded, rather for assistance in watering to meet requirements specified by AFL and New South Wales. Due to the drought, we do not have access to dam water, therefore town water is our only option. How can this possibly not fall within the drought relief? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Very quickly.
Yeah, very quickly, yeah. There's a lot of green ovals around, but most of them have got either bore water. Brocklesby, Ginbra's got good storm water. Well, Bunbury's got the Billabong, we've got nothing. So we're just asking for consideration at your motion put forward to council later on for help in sinking a bore, and hopefully we'll strike gold. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Councillors, any questions? No?
I'll just thank you for taking the time to come and share a bit more background behind your request. Thank you.
No questions? Councillor Weston?
Madam Mayor, could I ask, is there any bores in the vicinity that have been successful, Beryl?
There's one about 200 metres away, was owned by Gordon Smith, was a bit salty. I watered with it for years, we'd mix it with dam water. There was one about 500 metres away, they went down pretty deep and didn't have any luck. But above the recreation ground, we've got a granite overlay, and it's wet all the time, and I suspect there'll be water down the bottom of it, which is about 100 metres from our football oval, so we're just hoping for that. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I now invite Sharon Feuerhart to come forward to present her case. Thank you. Welcome, Sharon. Councillor Marr, can you turn that on?
Thank you.
There's 5 minutes and you'll get a bell at 4:30, okay?
Press go, Mark. Dear Madam Mayor, Councillors, General Manager, Directors, staff and members of the public, most importantly, we ask councillors to formally object to the Colcan Solar Farm on the basis of the report to ensure a planning panel is held and detailed scrutiny is conducted by the New South Wales Government, not just a desktop evaluation. This issue has taken a severe toll at no choice of our own. We have been intimidated. Community consultation has not been appropriate, and with no consultation with Stephen's parents on our 5th generation farm. Valuable agriculture should be protected. Appropriate places for solar are renewable energy zones in less productive places. We decided this project was too damaging for us, our farm and community. The millions are outweighed by risk. Our family has principles. We will not benefit from the loss or detriment to others. We stand by that decision. Our community should consider the truth, not ambiguity or clever marketing tactics. Community funds should not be used to market acceptance of a development. This development would be huge and confronting. Councillor Quinn, you said to avoid emotion and consider planning, then look towards the Greater Hume LEP, the Rural State Environmental Planning Policy, the Ministerial Direction, Large-Scale Solar Guidelines, the Riverina Murray Regional Plan, the New South Wales Right to Farm Policy. They all promote a strong intention to protect agriculture. Council knows this land will be mapped as important agricultural land and therefore constrained under the New South Wales Solar Guidelines. Where is the constraint in a 1,300 hectare solar plant along the Billabong Creek on bushfire mapped land near the hazards of a gas pipeline and pumping station within a few kilometres of town? Fire risk will increase as local RFS members will not enter the site. Reliable rainfall enables reliable hay and grain production. Drought prices for commodities will see our business excel this year. We know that economic information underestimates the value of production by over a third. We have proven the land capability with massive hay yields. Rural capability mapping mapped this land as Class 1. The Class 4 soil capability is inaccurate. Greater Hume endorsed their submission to the IAL mapping to protect agricultural land. The long-term multiplying benefits of agriculture extending right through the food chain should not be exchanged for short-term construction gains. Last year, Australia imported wheat for the first time in 10 years. Cumulative losses of agriculture need to be considered. The proponent talks of Dubbo and Merkur with propaganda of sheep grazing. The Dubbo video shows sheep eating hay on the solar site with minimal ground cover. Where did the hay come from? Not the solar farm. Why listen to the sales tactics of those receiving a financial gain? I have heard councillors disagree about shed heights or shipping containers not being in keeping with the local amenity. I would like to ask, how on earth is 1.1 million solar panels in keeping with the Greater Hume LEP RU1 zone objective to maintain the rural landscape character of the land? Be mindful that this development will not make our community special or extraordinary. These developments are happening everywhere with issues arising. What is extraordinary about our shire is agriculture. While other agricultural areas suffer, do not forsake this land for something that may be defunct in the future and create more of a problem than any gain. How can we promote the Live a Greater Life pitch surrounded by 1.1 million solar panels? Finally, I ask that you put yourself in our shoes. Would you do this development if everyone around you opposed? Imagine your home or business with 7 kilometres of frontage surrounded by 1.1 million solar panels. Imagine you will see this development from your kitchen bench. Imagine your grandchildren work in agriculture and have plans for the future. What will be the impact to the Billabong Creek next time it floods, and it will? Imagine mismothering from scared livestock with noisy pole ramming and construction alongside. Imagine the increased heat on surrounding crops from 1.1 million panels in a dry, hot, windy September. Imagine families' anxiety of unknown health impacts. Will they move at a loss? One already has. Imagine the mental health impacts due to the loss of peaceful rural outlook. Imagine you live next to the high-pitched ringing sound or the blaring pole driving. Imagine this development splits up our family and affects our kids. What will the bird life, frogs and wildlife, including vulnerable and threatened species, will the bird life, frogs and wildlife, including vulnerable and threatened species, be saved by offset calculations, whatever that means? How did the critters find their hollow logs relocated to another area, and what is the effect of 99 removed trees? Imagine how it feels if the community gains at our loss. Imagine a road incident caused by the significantly increased truck and vehicle movements. As farmers, we totally understand the impact of climate. That is the reason to protect this land. Our area provides when others are suffering. Colin, I note you've addressed amenity in your report, but the landscaping plan has areas that we will see from our house with no screening at all. I believe the EIS seriously downplays the visual impact to neighbours. That will be far greater than the company employee.
That's enough, thank you.
Thanks.
Councillors, are there any questions? No questions? Thank you very much, Sharon. Now we have a presentation from the Schoff family, from Rochelle and Dominique Schoff. So come forward, please, girls, up here. Thank you. Just
Good evening, councillors and community members of the Greater Good evening, councillors and community members of the Greater Hume Shire. I am Dominique Schoff, and my sister Rochelle and I are speaking for the Schoff family, who are landowners on the proposed Colcan Solar Farm site. Our apologies from our father, Jonathan Schoff, who wished to be here tonight, but is unable to speak as he is still recovering from ill health. We are committed to building a better future for our community, which we grew up in as fifth-generation farmers. We are in support of the Colcan Solar Farm because the project will provide clean energy in cooperation with agriculture that is both productive and sustainable. Our parents, Karen and Jonathan, were approached by many companies proposing to build a solar farm on the property. They chose Neowin because Neowin is the company that shares our value for supporting local communities. Neowin are committed to providing a development fund for the towns of Walla and Colcan. The fund will amount to $150,000 annually. Our family alone cannot provide $150,000 annually toward community development through conventional farming. but farming together with Neowin, we can develop clean energy, sustainable agriculture, and provide material support to our communities in the Greater Hume Shire. Out of the population of the Greater Hume Shire, the anti-solar campaign is a small minority that does not speak for the whole of the Shire. And they have relied on fear to create a narrative that is factually inaccurate. The Colcan Solar Farm will not threaten the agricultural backbone of the Greater Hume Shire. Instead, it will strengthen it. There's been, through the media, a false binary created between agriculture and energy. This is misleading. There is no choice between energy and agriculture. We can do both. We can produce clean energy and still produce food at the same time. It is not food versus fuel, it is food and fuel together. Only 16% of the agricultural land on the proposed site will be covered by solar panels, as Garth from Neowin will further explain. Also, Lisa from Neowin will share about Eddie, the Merkur farmer who has experience in running sheep underneath solar panels and the innovative technology that can be coupled with productive farming.
The Colcan Solar Farm is a change, and historically, change has always faced resistance. In the 1970s, our grandfather, Leon Schoff, told us of how he was confronted with change when the government compulsorily acquired his land to erect 12 transgrid power lines. At the time, he was pushed to oppose the project and sign a petition, but he declined. He told us of the story how he remembers receiving electricity and turning on a light switch for the first time in the 1950s. When pushed to propose the site, he declined because he remembers the benefits he had and he wanted someone else down the line in the future to receive the same benefits he already had. I am proud of my grandparents and I am proud of my parents for being forward-thinking and embracing change that will benefit this community and Australia. Now, more than ever, Australians young and old are worried as climate change threatens our energy supply and our agriculture. Coal is a finite resource and cannot provide energy to Australia forever. The Colcan Solar Farm gives the opportunity for the Greater Hume Shire to allow clean, renewable energy that supports sustainable agriculture. I ask the councillors to vote fearlessly, to think globally and act locally. This is a moment of change for a better future. Thank you.
Don't go away. Councillors, any comments or questions? No? Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. Rupert Cumming, welcome. The clock is over there.
Okay, thank you. All right, good evening, councillors. I'm here tonight to highlight concerns shared by many residents and to object to the proposed Colcan solar development. As we've just heard, this is a very emotive topic and has fractured the local community. Irrespective of that emotion, I'd like to bring some facts to your attention. Firstly, loss of agricultural land. The EIS refers to the land on which the proposed development is to be built as soil capability class 4. This is not accurate and misleading, with the subject land to be mapped as important agricultural land under the Riverina Murray Draft Important Agricultural Land Mapping Project. I believe the Greater Hume Shire Council is aware of this assessment, and the submission to the EIS prepared by Colin Kane confirms that inspections by Council of the development site and adjacent land supports this judgment. The importance of this land for agriculture use is also reflected in the significant uplift in land values. Rural land values in the Greater Hume Shire have increased by more than 90% since 2016. As quoted by the Greater Hume Shire Council's David Smith in the Border Mail on the 1st of February this year, and I quote, "Farmland has significantly increased in value across the Shire, especially flat cropping land. I know it looks pretty crook at the moment, but relatively speaking, our farmland was still producing reasonably well when others were really, really bad." End quote. The same article referenced a local agent quoting Billabong Creek country as making up to $5,000 an acre. These prices are predominantly being paid by other local farmers as they understand the importance of reliable, productive agricultural land. The proposed development has no regard to the agricultural importance of the land. In fact, it is quite the opposite. The EIS indicates that the underground cabling is to be left in situ when the proposed development is decommissioned. This does not align with the New South Wales DPI, which supports the removal of all above and below ground infrastructure once the solar farm is decommissioned, so that the land can be returned to agricultural production. The loss of important agricultural land to the proposed development also differs from the objectives of the Greater Hume Local Environmental Plan 2012. And I won't waste time going through that, but it highlights that the emphasis is to maintain the rural landscape character of the land. Point 2, economic impact. The economic impact statement estimates capital investment of $640 million and total economic benefits during the construction and operational phases of $84.3 million over 30 years. These figures are estimates and not fact. Gross revenue generated from the subject land in 2019 was approximately $1,650 a hectare, derived from hay, straw, grain and grazing. If multiplied over 1,300 hectares and after the ABS-related economic activity multiplier, this equates to $140 million over 30 years. So this development actually has a significant negative economic impact to the community. Furthermore, the farm gross income estimated is based on 2019, which we all know was limited due to the ongoing drought conditions. The reliability of the economic benefits is also questionable. Downer, one of the biggest solar contractors and constructors of large-scale solar farms in Australia, has recently signalled an exit from the solar business, citing the large-scale solar market had all but evaporated over the last 12 months. The risk of large power loss factors, grid stability and equipment performance is too large. Another large-scale solar developer, RCR Tomlinson, was liquidated in 2018 after delays and cost overruns. There is no guarantee that these developments will continue in the medium long term given technological advances. Think of how far our smartphones have developed over the last 10 years. This sort of technology will soon be outdated, and therefore we are at risk of making a long-term decision based on short-term information. And thirdly, environmental and social impact. There has been little research on large-scale solar developments. During the construction of solar panels, the metal, cadmium, is compressed between sheets of glass. Cadmium is a known carcinogenic and considered 10 times more hazardous than lead, which is also present in a typical photovoltaic panel. Once absorbed, it is associated with lung, kidney and bone damages, whilst exposures to lead can cause damages to the nervous system. When shattered, panels can break into tiny fragments and after time will transform into dangerous health hazards. An example of this is the 16,000 panels wiped out by Hurricane Irma in the Virgin Islands in 2017. Imagine this, but across 1.1 million panels. The unknown impact to the health of the community and the environment is just not worth it. If not destroyed by wild weather, these panels will last about 2 decades and then become useless, toxic waste that cannot be recycled. The EIS fails to address the end-of-life strategy of the development, and therefore the take, make, consume and dispose system undermines the renewable status of this technology. I'd like to thank Colin Kane for preparing the Greater Hume Shire submission to the EIS and hope that you consider the risks and long-term impact in making your decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillors, questions or comments? No? Thank you very much, Rupert. Now I invite Garth Heron from Neowen here to address the meeting. Thank you and welcome. Red light, please, Councillor Meyer.
Thank you everybody for coming tonight, and a big thank you to the Council and the Mayor for having us here today to present the Colcan Solar Farm, which is a project we've been working on for a number of years within the community. This project is different. So we have a project which of course works within all of the planning laws and applicable standards, but there are three main differences between our project and the other projects that have been proposed in the region. The first one is that Neowind is a long-term owner and operator of projects. We own and operate 12 operating wind farms, solar farms, and big batteries in Australia, and they're providing... Sure. Sorry. Yeah, so we're providing power to Australia right now. We have $2 billion invested in Australia, and we're continuing to invest at a rate of $1 billion a year. This means that we are providing cheap power out to people right across Australia, and it's coming from projects like this. The second one is that we're community focused. In every one of our projects, because we own and operate them long term, we need to get off on the right foot with the community. And we put a lot of effort into not just meeting the standards of development for community, but exceeding them. And we're doing many things on this project that we haven't done before to really push the boundaries of what we can do on a solar farm with the community. And the third one is batteries. So batteries are a big part of Australia's energy future, and I'd like to talk a little bit about that in the upcoming slides. So this here is a graph showing the power plants that are going to be retiring out of our system in the next 20 years. And you can see there are 4 big power plants in New South Wales. So Liddell is the one everybody talks about, that's 2 gigawatts. But there's Vales Point, Araring, Bayswater and Mount Piper. All of these projects are at the end of their life. And what it means is to replace these projects, we need to build 10 times the current capacity of South Australia's renewable energy just to replace them. So just to meet the needs of New South Wales, we're going to have to build 10 times South Australia here. If you look at the cost, renewable and batteries are not only good for the environment, but they're also cheap. They're much cheaper than the current New South Wales cost. So we've done some modelling on Colcan. We think we'll be able to provide 24-hour renewable energy from this project at a rate of about $65 a megawatt hour, which is about 2/3 of the existing price. So it's good for the state, it's good for jobs in the state, and this is what our state needs in order to move forward. So we, as Neowind, we own and operate the Tesla Big Battery in South Australia, and that was proudly developed by my team. This is a battery that really changed things in Australia, and Oricon did a study on this in the first year of operation. We saved over $50 million for customers in South Australia. And not only that, but since we put the battery in, we've kept the lights on. We're now rolling these across the NEM, and we want to do the same at Colcan. So the Colcan battery, what's it going to do for New South Wales? Well, it'll do 3 things. It's going to firm up our renewable energy supply, so it gives us 24-hour renewables. It's going to be doing energy arbitrage, so it's going to be soaking up excess solar during the day, and it's going to be pushing it out in the afternoon to meet the peak demand. And then we're also going to be providing frequency control and ancillary services. Now that's a word for basically supporting the grid when things go wrong. And this is what we're doing in South Australia. In other states, we've had blackouts. In South Australia, in the last 2 years since the battery has been installed, there have been no blackouts. Just wanted to run a quick slide on land use. So we've talked before about the land use. I think the impression that people get when they first hear about a solar farm is that the land is going to be completely covered with panels. That's actually not true. So when you actually look at the area of the panels themselves compared to the area of land underneath, it's about 16%. It really highlights the ability to graze sheep under the panels and continue to use it for agriculture. So it's not about taking away agricultural land, it's about using the land for both agriculture, sheep grazing and solar. Finally, just a quick slide on Hornsdale Power Reserve. Feel free to read it at your leisure. Thank you very much for your time.
Very respectful. Thank you. Questions, councillors? Councillor Knight.
I do have one, and I do apologise. My plane was 30 minutes late taking off, so I did expect to be here on time. And unfortunately, I've missed a couple of speakers. So, and I heard Mr Cumming is one of the objectors to the proposal. You would have heard them all.
Yes.
Is there anything that you believe you've heard that you can't, that you believe is false,
Yes.
misleading? I'm hoping, and this is an absolute breach, but I am hoping that there might be an opportunity for a rebuttal if there was one, because this is very important, not only to our shire but to the community. But we can't prove one way or the other with you standing there or anyone before you, whether there's something that has been said that you don't believe you can fix or that you believe is untrue.
So there are a number of things I think that were misleading. Very quickly. The economic assessment was probably the biggest one. So I've been working on projects across Australia for the last 8 years and across the world for 20 in total, all renewable energy projects. I've only ever seen an uplift in the economy of the areas where I go into when we build a new project. And this is something that I see right across every site, right across every town. When we go into a country town, we often see country towns under stress. Main streets are typically, there's one or two vacant buildings, there's not a lot of economic activity going on there. When we come in and we build a project, it really lifts the town. We see new businesses start up, we see a lot of money coming in. It's not just the construction, it's the ongoing operation, it's the community fund, it's the fact that there'll be a really good coffee shop that starts up that people start going to on the way through the town. All of these things add up. We end up filling the town with a couple of new families that weren't in the district before, and that has a big effect. There's all of these knock-on effects that I see on every project we work on, and I'm very proud to go down to the main street, in all of these projects that we've done. And show my face, and it's very personal for me. It's something I believe in, and something that I see a lot of value for.
Thanks, I have another question if I can, and that's, I don't know many of the towns that you mentioned where you currently have plants. Yes. If you wouldn't mind giving us an idea of the population of those towns, because where you're wishing to place this one, and this, as you're aware, I'm sure, is the third one that we've had come to us. Just tell us, if briefly, what the sort of population is of those communities. Are they as sparse as the two communities you're in between now?
Yeah, maybe Lisa's best to answer that.
Thank you. No further? Thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you. Now, next speaker is Lisa Steeble. Have I pronounced that correctly? Welcome. Thank you. You'll have 4 minutes 30 and then 30 to round up.
Same presentation, just moving on a few slides. Yeah. Thank you and good evening, everyone. I am wanting to talk about the community aspect of the Culcairn Solar Farm and just highlight a few reasons why we believe that NEON is different. First of all, as Garth alluded to, we are long-term owners and operators of all our projects, which is quite unusual in the renewable energy industry. A lot of proponents will sell their projects either kind of at financial close or within about 5 years of building a project. So for us, we are committed to being in the community for the next 25 to 30 years and potentially longer than that if we repower. As a result, we really do take community engagement and our relationships with the community seriously, and that I think has been manifested in how we've approached what we've done here in the Culcairn and Walla Walla region. There's a quote there from the neighbour to our Merkur solar farm, who is currently grazing sheep on Merkur, and that was what he thinks about how we do business and how we worked when we were in that community. NEON are community-minded people, was his words. We've took a very different approach to consultation that you would normally see, particularly after what was quite a difficult community event back in May of last year. And we really took some time to think about what would be the most appropriate way of moving forward, given that there was quite a lot of division within the community, and we really didn't want to inflame that further. So we took quite a private approach in bringing some local expertise in and having a lot of conversations where people felt they could actually share what they wanted to and also get the answers they were looking for. So those kitchen table discussions, we held over 130 of those over a period of several months, which is something that's very unusual again for a developer to do that. We've also provided the opportunity for people to go and visit one of the other projects, and we're continuing to do that in coming months. And we've also looked at a very different kind of community benefit sharing model than would be normal. So we've proposed a package of $10 million over the lifetime of the project, which is split into 3 layers. Firstly, some neighbour construction disruption payments, which is again the first time that this has been offered on a solar project in Australia. A community benefit fund and a proposed voluntary contribution to the Greater Hume Shire. So very local, slightly broader, and then Shire-wide. We currently combining solar with agriculture on all of our solar farms in New South Wales and Victoria, something that's been really successful. In the drought period that Dubbo's been experiencing, where there has been actually fairly limited growth, what they've been finding is that under the solar panels, the dew accumulates and then drops in lines, in rows along the solar panels. So Tom Warren has actually been able to continue grazing his sheep on and off during the drought on the land where the solar is. And also you're finding that there's a lot of shade. There are actually lots of multiple benefits that the solar and the combination of solar and sheep are having. So he estimates that he's getting up to 80% of normal stocking rates, which he think went actually higher during the drought period, which was quite an unexpected outcome. I don't think anybody realised that was going to happen. Just finally, wanted to talk about the Merkur solar farm. So this is probably the closest project to Culcairn that we've built. We built it about 1.5 years ago. It's now operating. It's powering the Melbourne trams and also the Laverton Steelworks. So 2 major projects that this in Victoria that this project is powering. And in terms of local suppliers, so there's been a kind of I suppose. This has been contested that there would be local benefits to this area. I just wanted to give you an example of what happened for Merkur. Major contracts were awarded to local suppliers, both in earthworks, civil, electrical and transport. And we have a representative from Watters who will speak in a moment. They had 100 workers on the site at peak and were able to involve over 20 apprentices, including bringing on first-year apprentices, which is no mean feat for small communities who are struggling to keep their young people in their towns. There are other examples there as well, and currently at the Merkur, which is a site that would be smaller than Culcairn, there are 6 full-time ongoing operational staff, all of whom live locally. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Any comments or questions? Councillor Quinn?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Lisa, you made comment a few slides back there about compensation for neighbours. My eyes couldn't focus on the dollars. I'd like you to go back and let me have a look at it, please.
So the figure there is $200,000 to $300,000 of neighbour payments made, and they'll be made at the start of construction to those neighbours who want to take up that offer. There's no requirement for if neighbours do or don't want to, but that's an offer that we've put on the table for people to take up if they so choose.
Question, Madam Mayor. In respect of the community benefits over the lifetime of the project, it's up there in print.
Yes.
And it leads down to 200 to 300,000 neighbourhood payments. Divided by 34 receptors, divided by 30 years, it's not much money at all.
So the 200 to 300,000 is a 200 to 300.
On the left-hand side, you've got 200 to 300,000 neighbourhood payments.
Yes, so that's a one-off. That would be a one-off payment at the start of
Why
construction.
is it in the lifetime of the project?
Because it would be part of the.
I'm saying it's not much at all over 30 years compensation.
So the two sums that are kind of ongoing annual sums are the annual community benefit fund and also the voluntary planning contribution to council. So those two sums would be annual through the lifetime of the project.
There's nothing explained about that in your EIS, and I'm finding trouble believing that against what's in the EIS.
No, those figures are also in the submission to the state government in the community relations
that's not
plan.
printed before the council.
It's in the report that's before the New South Wales department. So
we don't have that in front of us.
I can explain. My understanding with the payments is my understanding from my reading of the EIS is the $200,000 to $300,000 payment is a once-off payment at the front end of the development to the neighbours. The $150,000 is per year for the life of the development, and this other payment over here is per year for the life of the development to council as well. So this is just a one-off payment, Councillor Meyer, to neighbours. I don't know how many neighbours are sharing that 200 to 300,000. Might be, I haven't seen the formula on that, but that would be, I imagine, say, people within a 1 kilometre radius or something like that, or a 2 kilometre radius might be sharing that money. That could be correct, Lisa?
Yeah. Those payments are based on proximity, yes.
Yes. So I'd say the most affected resident would probably get a larger share of that 200 to 300,000, and then it drops off after that. But I don't know how that works particularly.
No, just to clarify that, it's the offer of payment is a standard amount to those who are within a certain proximity. It's not graded.
Okay. That's not clear. How that fund's not clear. It's not in the EIS how that's distributed.
All right. Councillor Weston.
Madam Mayor, could I ask why this area, when there is so much highly productive Billabong Flats country included in your selection of area, why here?
Yep, I might defer to Garth for the answer to that question.
There was a slide that we missed that would help to... Very quickly, please. Very quickly. Sorry. Yeah, so this slide really says it. So look, if you look at your average electricity bill, 40% of your average electricity bill is made up by network charges. Now the problem that you've got, if you want to build brand new wires out to these other parts to build solar farms out there, are threefold. The first one is that you're going to have to pay for the extra network.
Excuse me, we're all trying to listen to this answer, and I think it's very important that we listen to it. I'd ask you to desist, otherwise that's the door.
Thank you, Mayor. So the first thing is that you have to pay for the poles and wires themselves, and they're already contributing to 40% of your household bill. The second problem that you've got is when you put projects further out, away from the grid, you have to pay for the lost energy as well. So you might be producing the same amount of energy out there, but by the time it gets to consumers, it's less, and you have to pay for that. That results in a higher energy price. And then the third problem that you've got is the agricultural land issue. So you're taking the solar panels off the agricultural land which is near the poles and wires that exist, but you still need to get from the existing pole and wires out to where the new solar farm is, and that requires new poles and wires across agricultural land. So you're still giving up agricultural land when you're going further afield.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now I'm calling on Josh Goody. Sorry?
I did have a further question. Just to clarify, my reading of the graph you had up with the contributions was that there was a bucket of money to the tune of between 200 and 300,000, and that if people wish to apply that were affected, that would be shared amongst them. That is not just, yeah.
Yeah. They don't need to apply, so they've been offered it, just a matter of taking that offer up.
So if 5 or 10 took it up, it would be divided into upwards of 300,000.
No, so there's a set amount that's been offered, and then I guess if it's not taken up to the total amount, what we would look to do is just fold that into the community benefit fund, or find another way that made sense to allocate that. Yep.
I'm still confused, I'm sorry. When you say there is a set amount, is that within those parameters? Like, is it, I don't know, if say the set amount was 150,000, only 2 people would benefit out of that fund if it was a total of 300,000.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Thank you.
So the amount that's been offered to near neighbours is $15,000, and so yeah, depending on how many people take that up, it would total to 200 to 300,000. Sorry to not have been clear on that.
Thank you very much. I invite, where are we, Josh Goody and Peter Copley, please, to come forward. You'll have about 2.5 minutes each, by my reckoning. Fire away. Don't be shy.
Hi. I've come here tonight to speak in favour of the Colcan Solar Farm, as I've been working on the farms for the last 12 months, including the Merkur Solar Farm, which is a NEON project. After working and staying in these small towns, I have seen the huge benefits for the local community. As being a local contractor in a small town, we rely on non-repeat work, not like a farmer. While spending my time at Balranald Solar Farm, which is another project I was working on, I had a lot of time to talk to locals and see their side of the solar farm and how they felt about it. I knew NEON was trying to build a solar farm in my own backyard. I've talked to publicans, supermarkets, clubs, hardware, petrol stations, takeaway shops, bakeries, motels, mechanics, etc. They're all saying it's the best thing that has ever happened to the town after so many years of drought. I think people need to start looking more at the positive side of what we can do with the local community. So many jobs to come out of the solar farm, with so many jobs to come out of the farm, we might get new families to Colcan as well, which would be great. Yes, NEON is here to build a solar farm to make money, so let's jump on it while we can and take the opportunity while it's still here, because nothing will come to Colcan like this again. This will bring the town alive. I know, I've been there. I know what it's all about with my experience. These towns, feel free to come and talk to me. Sorry, if you feel free to come and talk to me about my experience anytime. Most people I talk to, they feel a little bit different after they hear my experiences in these small towns. I know we are building on productive farmland, but when you drive to Melbourne and see the housing on good farming land, they need power. And if we want clean power, these solar farms must go somewhere. So most of you already know, I was born and bred in Colcan. My whole family history is in Colcan. I'm raising my 4 children in Colcan, but I would never support anything I believe to ruin my hometown. Having a solar farm is coal can is progress, and good, clean progress is important. Thank you.
Terrific, well said. I'm Peter Copley. I'm the General Manager of Waters Electrical. We're across Shepparton, Wangaratta and Albury. I decided to come here myself. I wasn't poached or rang. I seen it was, and I rang the people up at Neon because we built the New Merkur solar farm. And I thought it was a great opportunity to talk about the community because I coached Holbrook in football, I coached Colcan in football in the 90s and enjoyed both towns and communities. And because of that, I thought I owed it to myself to come and say how I seen what the solar farm delivered to our business and the community. Very quickly, I drove to a little town called Wunyu, and there was this lovely lady that had a little coffee shop, and I heard some people smirking about coffee shops before, but that lady and her daughter, they had nothing before that farm started. And then the farm was good enough to give that community shop the opportunity to tender for the workers, which was, to me, was a great thing. And as the progression of that farm, I got to know that lady a lot better. For us as a business, that's one small example. Us as a business, we put on 15 first-year apprentices and we threw them all on the New Merkur solar farm. And we said to ourselves, if any of those kids can work on that solar farm in the middle of the heat of last year in 40 degrees, we're going to keep them on. Guess what? 14 of those kids survived and they still work for us today. And we just didn't put them on as cheap labour. We put them on because it meant something to community, it meant something to families. So that's part of it. 2 days ago I was driving past Holbrook and I went past Holbrook and I dropped in and had a coffee in the coffee shop. And there was the railways, and all the roadways were happening down there. Holbrook was a community of hub. Today that shop is not that great. They're still surviving, but they need this as well. And I look at the community and I see the amount of workers that are going to come here over the construction period. They won't go to Albury. It's too busy. It's too expensive. They'll go to Walla. They'll go to a little pub anywhere. They'll go to Henty. They'll also go to Holbrook. So the spin-off for the Shire is not just in your back door and it's not just Albury. It will be for the greater community. I thank you for giving me a gong because I could go on a lot more, right? I wish you all the best in your decision, and I'll close by saying I came in myself because I thought there's an opportunity, and your decision's a hard decision because there's going to be some positives and there's going to be some negatives. But whenever we look at life, look to the future, look to development, look to our infrastructure, and what we can do for our younger generation is the key to what your decision's about. Thanks very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Quinn?
Comment. It's more of a comment. It's more of a comment, Madam Mayor. I watched the last speaker play a lot of football once upon a time, and he was a slippery operator, and now he's a smooth talker, and I'm glad to see you move forward, Peter.
All right. Any other questions or comments, councillors? Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for your presentation. 7 o'clock, there you are. All right, councillors, we will begin our meeting. I would ask everybody to continue to be silent. We've got some very serious business to be transacting here today, and I just want to make sure that everybody can hear and everyone has a chance, certainly around the table, that is. I'll just remind you to, councillors, to speak into the speaker or the microphone. And check, when you do so, please check to make sure it is glowing red. I declare the meeting open, and I would call on Graham Shepherd, if he's here. I can't see. There he is. Thank you, to come forward and lead us in prayer. Welcome, Graham.
Thank you. Yes, I thank you for this opportunity, the council, and to come and pray before the meeting. Lord, we just thank you for the work the council does and its employees, And Lord, we just pray that your wisdom would Go amongst them, Lord God, that those who believe in you would pray to you and apply the wisdom that you give them to all the decisions they make, Lord God. Lord, we just thank you for the rain you've sent that have come down the coast and dealt with those bushfires, Lord. We thank you that you answer our prayers, Lord God, in the grace of your wondrous name. And Lord, we look forward to the breaking rains that will come across the rest of Australia too, to break this drought and, revive the country, Lord, in the glory of you. So, Lord, as the council deliberates, we just pray that you be amongst them and that your wisdom would be seen and evident. In the glory of your name, we thank you, Jesus. Amen.
Thank you, Graham. Councillor Meyer, would you like to turn that speaker up, please? Acknowledgement of country. I'd like to acknowledge that this meeting is being held on the traditional lands of the Wiradjuri people, and I pay my respect to their elders past and present. Item number 3, declarations of pecuniary interest or non-pecuniary interest, in other words, conflict of interest. We have one declared by Councillor Hicks, thank you, or two parcels, yeah, thank you. No apologies tonight. Confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting, councillors. Thank you,
Madam Mayor.
Councillor Meyer and Councillor Quinn. Any comments or questions? You're prepared to vote? Thank you.
Just a correction, Madam Mayor, in the minutes, on the page 38 of 39, in the last resolution, Councillor Parker was absent and her name's missing from that particular item.
A clarification on 5502, is that the one?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, she's listed as councillors for, so that needs to go over into the absent.
Absent, yes.
Is that correct, Councillor Parker? Yes. Very good, thank you, that will be done. Any other comments or questions? Prepared to vote? Those in favour? Carried, thank you. Action reports from the minutes. Councillor O'Neill.
Item number 5263 on page 2, the Gilbert Road. It says here that there was going to be an on-site meeting in January, but I'm assuming that wasn't happening because of the fires.
If you have a look at that, that's what's stated on there, that the bushfires have delayed. That'll be occurring shortly.
Any further comments or questions? Councillor Knight.
I had one with regard the next item, 2 down, 5294, the reclassification from community land to operational land. It does say councillors requested an update on the status of the planning proposal. I wondered, have we received an update yet?
Yes, and it passed last Friday. It's passed. Yes.
Sorry, in relation to that same one, the Pioneer Drive lot, was that included in what was passed?
Yep.
I was just thinking there might be complications with that one.
There might be later complications, but not in relation to this bit.
All right, we'll move on, councillors. Reports from officers. Part A, Environment and Planning. Do you wish to speak, Mr. Kane?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor. Happy to take any questions councillors might have.
Again, I apologise, I wasn't here for the two speakers, or the two earlier speakers on the proposal. Can I just get a point of clarification in regard to speaker number 2 and anybody else that may well be closer? I'm assuming that speaker number 2's property and family are the closest to the particular proposal in location?
Well, they're certainly one of the closest, but there's some equally as close because there's near neighbours. It's such a big site, so there's near neighbours all the way around the site. And then the other factor that has to be considered, I guess, is the location of the neighbours' dwellings in relation to the sites.
And I should have clarified, I'm sorry, yes, dwelling more than anything else, but also proximity to, my understanding is the configuration is quite different of this particular development in that it's not necessarily just in one location, it stretches. And I wonder the proximity to the actual application and the actual location of solar plant, the solar stations.
Oh, it's a difficult question to ask. Yes, it's definitely, it's hard to draw comparisons between one and the others. Some of them have been quite elongated, but occupy a smaller area than this one. This one's a large area, and it's just hard to comment on that configuration. But look, speaker number 2 wouldn't have the closest dwelling to the actual edge of the site. But yes, there's a lot of neighbours to the site because it's such a big site, and they all abut up in some form.
Yeah, one more and then
you mentioned in the report and in your draft response the number of people affected, 9 neighbouring properties that have residences. Could you tell me how close is the closest of those 9 properties, and from a dwelling perspective?
120 metres.
Councillor Shield.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's a couple of things that I are a little bit concerned with, and I don't think the EIS gives us enough information. 1.1 million panels. It's hard to imagine that many panels in one spot. With the decommissioning or their life, or if they're damaged along the way, what I know they're meant to be recycled. To my knowledge of my own little bit of research is that the only facility that can actually cope with these is in South Australia. I stand to be corrected. Is there any other particular facility for recycling these panels? And with the chemicals, I have looked at some information that describes how they're broken down and you get glass at the end, but there's still those toxic chemicals remain. So where will they all be put in the long term?
I can only, as to the recycling facilities in Australia, I haven't got that knowledge. There has been some talk about improving recycling opportunities in Australia for solar panels. Early days yet. The EIS mentions that a lot of the material will be returned to the actual manufacturers. That I do know. That's from the EIS. They say that there's product return agreements in place with the manufacturers of the equipment, whether it's panels or other items. So that's the only knowledge I have on that question.
And with the situation with China, are they still all made in China? Are there going to be delays? Or, will they take them back?
I don't know this. I don't know the answers to that question. I think I couldn't comment on that. I just don't have that knowledge because it wasn't contained in the EIS that I read. So.
Talking about change and looking to the future and for our future children, grandchildren, etc. But it's a huge solar farm and it's not the only one in the country. There will be waste, so are we just leaving a pile of rubbish for our children at the end?
Do you wish to comment on that, Mr. Keane?
I can't. Well, the only thing I can say about it is that what I'm aware of from my dealings with the local waste group, the Re-Rock Waste Group, and they recently had a meeting and have been dealing with people from the University of New South Wales that have been looking at various ways of recycling problem waste and new forms of waste. So I think wherever there is a need, the waste industry would respond to that need in some form, and whether that's solar panels or could be other products that'll come to the fore. I think generally there's an acceptance that waste has to be dealt with in an environmentally sustainable way now. So,
Thank you. Just need to put it out there.
I actually think, Councillor Shulk, that one of the conditions of approval, should it get approval, will be the adequate and proper disposal of the waste. Doesn't matter what we talk about, but the organisation that delivers that tick, that will be putting that into the approval.
Madam Mayor,
Councillor
we're having
Meyer?
discussions about a resolution that hasn't been moved yet. I would like to move the recommendation as printed. I'm not against solar farms, but there are a tremendous amount of questions that haven't been answered to the council or answered to the receptors who live around the project. And I think they deserve answers by referring it to a planning panel, as we've done with the other 2 applications we've had to deal with today.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
There's no particular motion. It says either object or raise concerns. It doesn't say refer. Sorry.
Speak up.
Sorry, the motion, if it's the recommendation, doesn't say one or the other, because the recommendation is resolved to submit a submission that either raises concerns or objects. Thank you.
I think each one means the same. Concern and objection is the same.
Raises concerns or objects to. You want it to be either or, do you?
it was my intention that the councillors would select one or the other. They're not the same. The consequences for the proponent are quite different, potentially different. If council objects, the application is automatically sent to the Planning Commission for determination. But if council raises concerns, that might not be the case. It would be dependent on another 25 objections coming from the community. So they're quite a different outcome, and it's my intention that councillors, based on their feeling of the development, makes a selection, one option or the other, raise concerns or object.
It's in my court then, Madam Mayor, to say that the wording should be objects on the basis that it needs to be re-examined through the planning panel.
Remove either raises concerns so that it becomes that objects to.
That's correct.
And I'll second that.
Okay, that's been moved by Councillor Meyer, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. Do you wish to speak, Councillor O'Neill?
No, I agree with Councillor Meyer that there is more issues that need to be looked at in closer detail, I think.
Anyone wish to speak in favour?
I want to speak against.
Just a minute. Anyone wish to speak in favour? No, you're not in favour, are you? You're in favour of the motion? Yeah. Just a minute.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I move the recommendation and I'm in favour of the motion that reads objects. And I thought I had already spoken, Madam Mayor.
Yes, true.
Yeah.
Is there any... Turn that off. Is anyone wanting to speak in favour of the motion? No. Councillor Knight, you wish to make a statement or a comment or something?
I speak against the motion. I believe that we 9 are put here to make a decision. If it had have been said, the motion had have said object on such and such grounds, I may well have been able to go along with it. But when the motion and the commentary says we object so that we can absolve ourselves of the decision, and I know that's not exactly what you said, but you did say there are many questions that need to be answered. I think a panel should look at it. I truly believe the council should look at it, and the council should either say in favour or against, and not do it so that somebody else can take the decision off us. It's our decision.
Madam Mayor, I may be new in this game, but I don't believe the council has the right to interrogate the proponents, and I'm saying proponents, to seek answers on behalf of other people.
Are there any further comments or questions? Councillor Quinn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As a councillor, I'd love the opportunity to be able to say about this neon solar farm that not in my area, just not in my paddock. But as a councillor, I'm bound by a code of ethics, and I have to analyse this properly on planning grounds. As it goes, it's permissible in our LEP, and we have to start there and have a look at it. Our reaction to the EIS, in my opinion, and I'm very different from my neighbour Rupert who talked earlier, I see it very different. He thought it was very good. My reaction to the EIS that has been presented in our business paper is it's like a bunch of flowers, roses, that I buy for my girlfriend, but I leave it in the ute for a week before I give it. I've gone through what Mr. Keynes proposed, and it looked very rosy from the start. But as you go through it and let it sink in, I truly believe it's giving Neon a giant free kick. They can answer all the little things that are raised. I mean, we talk about farmland, and it's only 2 months ago that this council, and there wasn't a whimper in the chamber, decided to look into a bit of farmland to the east of this room. Beautiful farmland for future housing, maybe 30 or 40 years away. Nobody made a whimper. Now we've got the whimpers everywhere about farmland. This outfit would be on about 20% of the property. I won't even use the imagination what might happen with the rest of it, but it would grow grass and something would eat it or something would bale it. Might even be a crop or so. So the concept that everything's going to be ruined won't wear with the panel. And the other thing which is very dear to my heart, and I differ very much from one of the speakers, the economic impact. It will create a huge economic impact. Huge. Whereas our EIS reply said, not much, not much. It will be huge. I've got lots more to say, but I better not because I might get the shakes or something because I'm a little bit vintage, Madam Mayor. But I'd like to propose an amendment because I don't want to give the operators a free kick and an easy ride through. I believe that we should have some conditions in store if the panel decides to say yes. There's 3 issues that I consider very important, Madam Mayor. Firstly, there should be very advanced screening of the whole area. Whether it be trees 2 or 3 year old, that's up to the people who've got to do the job. Between the 1st of December and the 1st of March, there should be a fully equipped fire unit, fully manned with Rural Fire Service accreditation. That means probably at least 10,000 litres of water and 3 people to operate it. And the third one, weeds. There should be a full plan for 12 months weed control, and it should be signed off by 2 agronomists. These are some of the things. There's a lot of other things that are of concern to people, but they will be addressed by the panel if they say yes. But these 3 ones could be scanned over unless we stick our neck out. So that's the amendment, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
With that amendment, is Councillor Quinn still suggesting that we raise these 3 things as issues?
Yeah. Councillor Quinn, are you suggesting that we still follow that resolution with these 3 items included? You're proposing
The proposal
an amendment?
the amendment is quite separate from the original motion. My apologies for not clarifying it.
So how do you want that to read?
If the panel that analyses the DA votes in favour of approving it, these 3 conditions be included in the conditions of consent.
Or does Councillor Quinn want to add those issues to the submission?
Yes.
In my submission, councillors, in the annexure, you'll see at the very end of the letter, there's some dot points that are recommended conditions in the event of approval. It's my suggestion that if councillors were in mind to consider Councillor Quinn's request, that they would just make additional dot points right there in the letter, because that's what it's saying. It's saying the letter essentially says council will either choose to object or raise concerns, which it's still yet to decide on. But at the very end, it says in the event that it actually deals exactly with what Councillor Quinn is saying. In the event of a decision to approve the development, these are the conditions we'd like to see put in there. So it wouldn't be easy enough just to add those 3 points as dot points in the tail end of this letter. And I think it'd achieve the ends that Councillor Quinn's trying to say.
Can I suggest we need to tidy up that amendment a bit, I think. And I'd like it to start that council resolved to submit a submission, or to lodge a submission that objects to the development of the Culcairn solar farm as described in the environmental impact statement. You don't have to have that in the Culcairn solar farm again. And include a recommendation that those 3 items be included. Yeah, take that, that's right. Can you read that adequately? Is that satisfactory?
No, Madam Mayor, I'm very specific in the 3 key factors. I've spent a lot of time thinking about the process. As I outlined, that our submission gives the Neon fellas a pretty free kick. I just want to safeguard certain conditions if the panel decides in favour. If they don't decide in favour, well, it's a non-event.
So you want those 3 items regarding the advanced trees included in the conditions, and the firefighting fire tanker from 1 December to 31 March, fully manned to be on site for that period of time, and proper weed control.
12-month weed control plan.
Yes, with a 12-month weed control plan. Pardon? Yes, signed off by 2 agronomists. Is that better? That council resolved to lodge a submission that objects to the development, but in the event, I suppose,
Or just, I think that with the addition of the points below,
included in the submission.
Madam Mayor, I don't know whether it's my problem or what it is, but I specifically want those 3 items listed if it is approved. I am definitely not saying that I object to the development. I outlined what I thought about Mr Kane's reply, and no disrespect, sir. I think our comments on agriculture and economics are pathetic, and that's why I say were giving Neon a free kick because they'll be able to drive a bus through those comments.
Madam Mayor, a question please. If it gets referred to the planning panel, Councillor Quinn would have the right to appear before that panel and ask that those items be included. Am I correct?
I would imagine that would be so. I think I would imagine that anyone who wishes to attend is able to attend. I'm not sure how it all works, but I'm sure that would be the case.
It was the case in others, Madam Mayor, that we've
Yes, that's true.
been before the panel on.
It's true. Councillor Knight?
I believe again that absolves us of making a decision. Do we want these 3 points put to the panel, if there is a panel? If we do, why wouldn't we just say that Councillor Quinn could lodge a submission to suggest he might be able to appear before the panel? That's fine if he has the availability of time, financial resources, whatever to do it. But like anybody else, he could actually lodge a submission. He'd like it as a council, part of a council submission, but not worded to say that we object to the proposal. So he's actually moving completely different. It's not an amendment because his amendment doesn't say we're going to lodge any submission at all. It waits for a decision, if there is to be one, to come from the planning panel. And I believe we're trying to walk away from making a decision ourselves. And I have real difficulty with that.
If I could, just the lead into that last paragraph that I referred councillors to, it actually says, I'll read it because I think it might just do, I still think it'll do the trick, so I'm just going to persevere a little bit with it if I could, Madam Mayor. Council's engineers have reviewed the traffic impact statement, so I'm just talking just about the traffic impacts here, but I could change those words. Contained within the EIS and provide the following recommended conditions in the event of the approval of this application. So in relation to the following points, that's irrespective of whether it's just saying this is what we would like if it's approved. Whatever that, if that's the outcome, then we would like this. And I still think that would satisfy what Councillor Quinn's trying to say, because if you're listing it there, the panel would know, or it's not a panel anyway, the Planning Commission would know that's the intention of council, that we would like those things included, and if it was possible, they may consider that.
Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, just under the amendment, my name, that part's got to be crossed out. And the fact of the matter is that we're never big on meeting procedure here, but Councillor Osmond's hit the nail on the head.
Councillor Quinn, make your point, please.
Councillor Knight, well, my amendment, if you follow real debating orders, can't stand because I'm the opposite to the motion.
The only reason Councillor Quinn isn't the opposite to the motion is he hasn't said that he agrees or objects. If it was attached to the top, he's saying that's not his amendment. His amendment is that there are 3 issues we need to raise with the Commission if they start to determine the proposal. And I don't know how he can put that as an amendment and stand it alone, but he's not going to include it with I object. That's all there is to it. And we either object or we don't object.
Councillor Parker?
Madam Mayor, isn't Councillor Myers' resolution that we do object to the application? Isn't that what he's saying? And shouldn't we be debating that, like you're debating against it, and so is... And I think Councillor Quinn is not saying that he objects at all. Is that correct, Councillor Quinn?
just got a bit of work being done over here while we try and get this right. Is it right yet, Councillor Quinn?
I don't know what's wrong with me, but I don't concur with what's in Annex 1. I said all along that Annex 1 will give Neon a free kick. And surely, Mr GM, you can understand that. It's a matter of whether the amendment is possible or not. But I don't agree, and I made the comments about agriculture and economics. And I just do not agree with the summation in the Annex 1. And if that goes to the panel, I maintain it'll give Neon a free kick. And it's not my intention to do that.
Councillor Quinn, if the words that in addition to the draft submission Annexure 1 were taken out, it would then read, with regard to the development of the Colcan Solar Farm, Council resolves to lodge a submission which raises the additional issues as outlined below.
Madam Mayor, could I object to the last comment, because there are over 50 issues throughout that. If you'd read it through and took notice of it, there are people everywhere who have objections to various points in that. One of the key ones that Councillor Quinn has missed is it doesn't even acknowledge Rural Fire Service. It refers to fire and rescue as being the determining authority. That's madness. We're in the bush. Those sort of things need to be changed.
Councillor Meyer.
Be happy with the word. Very happy.
Are you happy with that?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'm happy with that wording, yes.
So that would be your amendment, okay? So we're dealing with the amendment, councillors, and if you don't like it, you vote it down. Pardon? We do need a seconder. Is there a seconder? That's the first thing we've got to do. Is there a seconder? Third time round. Is there a seconder to that amendment of Councillor Quinn's? No, that will lapse for want of a seconder. So we go back to the motion. You happy with the motion, councillors? We've got a mover and a seconder to that. It's right up the top there. Moved by Councillor Meyer and Councillor O'Neill. The council resolve.
We might just change it. Council resolved to submit a submission as outlined in Annexure 1.
Mover and seconder, happy with that? All right. You going to put in another amendment?
Just briefly speaking against it, all along I've maintained that Annex 1 in the business paper gives Neon a free kick, and I don't think council should do that.
Are you suggesting that we make some changes to, or look more closely at it, as Councillor Myers indicated, Councillor Quinn?
If I may answer that, Madam Mayor, all I can say to Councillor Parker is read the Annex 1 several times. It takes a little while for some of the gobbledygook to sink in, but there are certain facts there stated that are not reality. The economics, you as a businesswoman would know that the economics are totally misjudged.
Speakers for or against? Do you wish to sign off, Councillor Meyer, as the mover?
I think that Annex 1 does talk about everything we've been talking.
Councillor Meyer.
Oh, I'm sorry, Madam
Yeah,
Mayor,
come
my
on.
sincere
Get it a
apologies.
bit closer to you. That might help.
I don't think it covers all of the items that we're trying to refer, Madam Mayor. The most difficult thing that I've had to do with this is trying to read that EIS on an iPad. It's 300 and something pages, it's fine print, it's a lot of things you can't flick back from one to the other. But I did note there are a lot of things in it that are misinterpreted. And I think they have to be cleaned up. Probably a rewriting of the EIS might be the total answer for it. I'm not objecting to the actual development, I'm objecting to the way that it mismanages the words in English in terms of different aspects of the project. One I quoted was where they refer to fire and rescue as being the service, where in actual fact it's a rural fire service area, and rural fire service should be the determining authority in respect of things like that. There's a number of them, and we can't deal with them individually. It's probably got to be done in a workshop of council, which we don't have time to do. So, you know, if you need an Annex 1 in up there to get the matter through, I'm quite happy to wear it, but somebody's got to sit down with Colin and write out the things that we needed included in it as a reference point.
It has to be in tomorrow. Close of business tomorrow. I don't think there is time to do that.
Madam Mayor, I object to the fact that we're now discussing a motion which talked about how we're going to respond and how we're going to let a commission deal with it, but you want to change the annexure, but your motion at the moment says everything's outlined in the annexure. We can't keep adding to a motion.
Annexure 1 was not in my original motion, Councillor Osborne.
Well, we can take it out, but the issue is this submission needs to be lodged tomorrow. Right. So if there are any additions to Annexure 1, they need to be sorted out tonight.
Sorry, as seconder, I would actually like to see the 3 from Councillor Quinn added into the submission.
My apologies, Madam Mayor, I didn't hear Councillor O'Neill.
I would like to see the 3 points raised by Councillor Quinn added into that submission.
Perhaps the answer to that, Madam Mayor, would be at the finish of my initial resolution, we use the words in addition and include those 3 points.
We're making a submission. It's not Annexure 1. Councillor Myers just said he didn't include Annexure 1 in it. But Annexure 1 happens to be the submission that's been prepared to go tomorrow. So if we're lodging a submission, we better come up with what it is, because it's not apparently Annexure 1.
That's right. I mean, all we would be doing would be sending up that statement.
I accept Councillor Osborne's attitude towards the motion. We can't... Yeah, well, I'm sorry, Madam Mayor. I can't see any other way than turn my head around to look. We just haven't got time tonight to go through the EIS to name all the things that are wrong. So we have to word it in such a way that we can add to it later on.
When is later on?
When we get to a planning panel point.
If we get.
If we get. I'm sure all the other members in the community who want something to say will be lodging enough paperwork to make sure there's going to be a planning panel hearing. If they don't, they've let this side down because they've certainly been using my phone to tell me what they think.
Councillor Shulg.
Madam Mayor, can we move on, please? This has become a bit of a dog's breakfast and it's becoming embarrassing with the schmozzle. Can we have some clearer directions so we can make a vote?
Well, are you asking us to put the motion?
If that's what it takes, put the motion, please.
All right. Submit, yeah.
If I may, Madam Mayor. In drafting my initial recommendation, it was probably amiss of me not to mention the words Annexure 1 because something has to be lodged tomorrow. So that's an error that I've made, but in putting that recommendation to Council, it was clearly my intention that we would be objecting based on Annexure 1.
Now it's tedious, but we do have to get it right. All right. Prepared to vote now?
Madam Mayor, is that still going to allow all the additional points, some of those that I've mentioned tonight, such as the...
No.
The matter of the Rural Fire Service is included in the submission. Well, it is. It's on page 3 in point 4. And it says, whilst the EIS does review the risk proposed by bushfire and other sources of fire, it does not do so in the context of responding to comments provided by the New South Wales Rural Fire Service as part of the Secretary's environmental assessment requirements. And that's part of the problem. The Secretary didn't ask for it to be addressed against the Rural Fire Service. Council believes the importance of addressing the bushfire risk warrants ascertaining the New South Wales Rural Fire Service comments prior to the application being determined. That's what it says.
I accept the point. I accept the point, Madam Mayor. Do we go into all the other things that people have jotted down, or do we go to the panel and say, this is what we believe should be? Okay.
Correct. I think we've got to move. There is the motion. Are you all understanding what the implications are? No, it's the motion. The amendment was lost. Take the amendment down. Yeah, but get it out of our sight. So we're not getting confused. So those in favour of the motion? Hold your hands up. I've got to count and it doesn't take, I've got to be clear about it. That's those in favour? For? Against? 4-3. You abstaining, Councillor Weston? Oh!
So sorry.
It's a vote in the negative if you abstain.
Can we see the screen again?
No,
please?
you've
All
you
right,
abstained, so it's a vote in the negative. That's how it works.
Okay, I messed up. All right, I'll vote
So that's
for
for
the
all.
motion.
Pardon? No, you've abstained.
Voted for the motion.
That's for all. Right? Have I got that right? Mm? We're just checking something here.
Madam Mayor, I think we need a little rethink there when I was a bit slow in getting it, I admit, but I went for the motion.
Well, we can't change it.
I didn't change anything. I didn't
No,
vote
but
against-
if you're not indicating, you're abstaining. And when you abstain, that's a vote in the negative. Am I correct, Councillor Quinn?
That is meeting procedure under local government, Madam Mayor.
Just checking our meeting procedure booklet here, just to make sure we've got it right. We don't want somebody challenging what's happened.
Okay. Clause 11.5 of the Code of Meeting Practice states, a councillor who is present at the meeting of the council but fails to vote on a motion put to the meeting is taken to have voted against the motion.
Councillor Weston?
How much time is given?
There's no time on it.
Well,
I think it's just, well, we could be here all night arguing the point. I think it's quite clear, actually. It's quite clear.
What is it that's quite clear?
Well,
that I was abstaining? I wasn't abstaining.
Yes, you didn't vote. Your hands were down. I didn't see hand go up or down. You still had your hands down. And I think I gave everyone adequate time to vote.
I'll accept the decision.
Thank you. The thing is, I've now got a casting vote. Now, where are we? You better put that back up again. Yeah. Pardon? No, neither was I. Oh, very infrequently. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to... can I just read out a couple of things in speaking to this? I don't often do this, or very infrequently. I just want to make some points about solar farms. This is a bit out of the ordinary, but I do want to make a point. The urgency for renewable power cannot be understated. Renewable energy is shunned by many. We talk about the loss of productive farming land. The actual greatest loss of farmland is due to lifestyle and hobby farms, and Councillor Quinn instanced that in his talk. Very few trees will be lost. Native grasses are almost extinct on the land, if not extinct. More trees will be planted than are being removed. Erosion has many causes, including through farming practices. Noise is currently an issue from the nearby quarry, and that's been raised. Roads will be refurbished on completion. The visual impact, no one owns a view, is my opinion. Tree plantings will help block that view. The cheaper power generated will be for the benefit of the whole community, and not just this Culcairn area, but Australia-wide really. Removal of the installation, the land will be returned to agricultural use, and that has been stated. There are already plans afoot for construction of solar plants in Western New South Wales. It's been instanced here and in other forum that the land should be used that's way out unproductive land. Now, the people who use the so-called unproductive land out west would disagree totally with you, because they generate a lot of money in certain years, and a lot of money. Make no mistake about it. There are already plans afoot for construction of... much of the required infrastructure already exists running through the middle of this shire, and this is the reason why this has been chosen, because of its sheer proximity. So they're the reasons why I voted the way I did. However, I'm going to vote in favour that it go to the planning panel in using my casting vote. And I haven't done that lightly, but I think it's another opportunity for people to have their say if that's what really they want to do. But I think, you know, there are a lot of people who are concerned about it. I understand that, and I respect their view, as long as they're prepared to accept my view, which I've put reasonably logically, I would have thought. And I think most people in this room tonight have done the same thing, and I hope we can walk out of here tonight and still be able to speak to each other in a civil manner. It's been a very divisive issue for this council and for this community. Thank you. We'll move along. Item number 2, development application.
Can I just ask a question? We're all recorded now as having voted for or voted against. In other circumstances, you can have your name recorded, but it's already recorded. I would like my voting against, if possible, be recorded because of the reason I did, and that is that we have to vote. We cannot leave it to the state government sometimes to do it, and to ourselves when we feel like it's our prerogative. It's either one or it's the other.
Madam Mayor, is that going to be recorded specially?
What I just said?
No, what Councillor Knight said.
The fact that she has voted that in that manner,
yeah.
Well, it's always recorded here. Oh, that bit.
Under other circumstances, on other issues, it has been known for councillors to want their vote against recorded. It's only because this is an actual planning matter that we're going through this writing of it all down. I would like, if possible, to have my vote recorded as against...
As a negative, against the motion.
Against the motion, based on the fact I think we should make our own decisions.
Yep.
and I wanted mine recorded, Madam Mayor, to the fact that I believe that Annex 1 is giving Neon a free kick. And I want...
No, look, I think my understanding would be is that now under the new Code of Meeting Practice we're required to record all of the for and against for every motion, not just this. So I can't see how it is relevant these days, particularly when the meetings are live streamed and available on our website after the meeting, that people can judge for themselves the comments that have been made, and I think it's, you know, people's opinions these days will be clear because of that fact.
All right, we're moving on to item number 2.
Recommendation, Madam Mayor, is printed.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that?
Yes, I'll second that one.
Councillor Schill, thank you. Do you wish to speak, Councillor Quinn?
No, Madam Mayor, it's all fully articulated.
Thank you. Any fors or against? No. Prepared to vote? Those in favour? Carried. Can somebody ask Councillor Hicks to come back in, please? Item of governance, item number 1, Mary Regional Tourism Board, the 1-year extension of the Memorandum of Understanding. Councillor Meyer.
Seconded.
And Councillor O'Neill. Any opposition?
I'd like to point out something if I could. They're asking for a year. I'd like us to do a lot of study in that year, what the benefits are. I did a little bit of calculation, and the fact is that there are only 3 councils who pay anywhere near as much as we do per attracted visitor. Now, if they want to base the fact of their work on how many visitors they attract to an area, it costs us $83 for every one of them that turns up. Whereas the Alburys are 38 and the Campaspis are 38 and the Mildurs even are $38 per visitor. So I think we really, when it comes time to look at a full contract, have to do an analysis of what the benefits are and the proven benefits, or whether there's other means we can attract that number of people to our shire.
Perhaps it might be appropriate to either have an amendment or add it to the
Well,
existing motion that one year. Perhaps it would be appropriate to add it to the existing motion or have a new motion that requests that a review be undertaken over the next 12 months to quantify the benefits versus the cost of the contribution.
I believe Councillor Myers going along with it. Yep. It is that over the next ensuing, that's better than next, 12 months, a full analysis be made of the benefits of being a member of this association or board.
You're happy with that? Yes, thank you. Prepared to vote, those in favour? All carried, thank you. Item...
I'm just ready to move the next motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Oh, everybody. Councillor Parker. Do you wish to speak, Councillor Schill?
No, not at this moment.
Okay. Any speakers for or against? Councillor O'Neill.
Can I just make a comment about the River Minna toilet facility? I was just talking to Daryl before the meeting. Apparently the current composting one is full, and apparently you actually have to shovel it out to empty it. So, yeah, I think a new toilet facility is going to be wonderful.
I wonder, Mr General Manager, is there any hope of finding them more money given the revelations of Councillor O'Neill? I really think it needs to be done, and I really think it deserves to have a proper toilet system working there.
Well, look, I'm sure the committee of Wirramina will be continuing to look for grants. Part of the proposal, as you would have seen in your annexure, was that they were going to seek a low interest loan from council and had some funds of their own. But I'm sure that in the interim they will still be looking for other grant opportunities. As we know, they've applied for several but have been unsuccessful. They may well have some grant applications in, I'm not too sure. But so there is light at the end of the tunnel if they get this $25,000.
Madam Mayor, if I just may make a comment about this whole process. It's the reverse of a sports rort. It's a rort on drought money. I'm just quite surprised, Mr General Manager, that Anthony Bunn hasn't called for your resignation. The atmosphere's been very heavy for a while, Madam Mayor, and a bit of light notation.
Do you wish to say anything further? Turn your lights off, please. All right, any further comment? Prepared to vote, those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Item number 3, the overview of the Green Valley Avoca
Move
fire.
the recommendation, but I have one addition if I might add. Under point 4, if we might add, that a letter of thanks be sent to all staff who took part in administrative and other works out of their normal work roles and hours.
Was moved by Councillor Schill. Did you do that?
Moved by Councillor Osborne.
Osborne, sorry, and Councillor Myers second. Yeah. Yep.
I married him. Only if there's opposition, Madam Mayor. I do believe they went out of, really went above and beyond the call of duty.
Absolutely above and beyond, and I think we'll be forever thankful and grateful to all those people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sorry. Councillor O'Neill?
Sorry, just having been at the Ginger Forum meeting last night, it was discussed about the fact that they would like to organise a thank you to the Ginger and Glenellan Fire Brigade members, and I'm just wondering, a barbecue sort of fun afternoon type thing so that people can recognise who's actually, in their local fire brigades, and I'm just wondering whether council had a little bit of money to put towards that. Otherwise they're going to, canvass the local businesses and people.
Look, I guess that there's a bit happening in that space. As Councillor Meyer would be aware, Henty's planning to do something. Look, we've got this, as councillors are aware, this $100,000 from the state government to undertake some projects around the bushfire. One of those projects, I would have thought when we consider them at a workshop on the 11th of March could be some sort of larger thank you event for the Shire, but not only for the volunteer firefighters, but for all the people that assisted Councillor Parker at Holbrook. For example, the council staffers that have been recognised tonight. There is a lot of people that should be recognised at some point in time, which the Mayor's already spoken to me about another couple of issues, or another couple of ways of doing that. But I think, look, up at Henty, it's being externally funded, I think. But, so whether we provide a few dollars here and there for different functions, or whether we try to hold a major function, I've got an open mind about that. Look, I guess it'd be a matter for council if they wanted to do that.
Madam Mayor, taking the General Manager's invitation, might I stress that the event in Henty is not directly related to bushfires. It covers the whole ambit of fire and rescue and some of the things they're being involved in, and it's more to do with the mental aspects of what some of them are facing.
Councillor Parker?
Just in relation to that, thank you. Holbrook's actually organising a fundraiser that's for Meg McPaul, but also an acknowledgement of all the volunteers on the 29th of May. We're actually having a sportsperson's evening with celebrities like Billy Brownless and Kevin Sheedy and Lauren Jackson and I can't think of the other guy's name. Isn't that terrible? That's really bad. I hope this is not being recorded. Andrew Gaze. Oh, knew I was going to get it. So we're actually having that on a Friday evening, but we're going to invite all the firefighters and all the volunteers that helped out during the time that, you know, we have a record of. So we might be calling on, you know, people like Councillor Hicks to give us some names from his side of town. Yep.
Yeah, so look, perhaps that is an event, because certainly as councillors are aware from information that I've sent to them previously from my last meeting up at Gingellic, is that they're planning a couple of community events as well, and I said that, you know, it's likely that council may want to hold some thank you event, possibly in Holbrook, given that that was the staging point for a couple of weeks of the fire, and as you know, probably they're our closest, largest town to the actual fire area. So I think, you know, those sorts of ideas can be considered by council at the 11th of March. Now, you know, what we do about one-off events like the one that Councillor O'Neill suggested, you know, I'm in the hands of council. If they would like to make a modest donation to something like that, then we can certainly organise it.
Yes, if I just speak a bit more to that. I think the idea was that, you know, a lot of people that live around Gindra and even outlying areas really don't know who their local fire members, volunteers are, and they thought, you know, this way they can get to actually know and perhaps help in the recruiting of more people. So, I mean, it was going to be like a sausage sizzle. So if council would like to give, you know, a bit, we'll probably talk to Rural Care Link too and see if they'd like to donate towards that.
Well, the Mayor certainly has some delegations in that regard, so perhaps the Mayor and myself could have a discussion about that at some stage after the meeting.
Move the recommendation, Madam Mayor, and again, the 11th of March is a good date to start talking about all these sorts of things.
I'll second that motion.
Moved by Councillor Knight and seconded Councillor Shilg. All those in favour? Oh, sorry, just a moment. Councillor Quinn wishes to speak.
Couple of quick comments. The Australian Government, on page 29, the Australian Government Human Service Disaster Recovery Payment. Very hard to operate. A lot of sad examples. Shocking. Volunteer firefighters payment, as far as I know, you've got to do 10 days straight, and it don't work, and very few are put in for it. Now, somehow or other, the feedback should go to the pollies, because particularly the top one has been an utter disgrace. I've operated out of Albury and it's shocking. And these people are really destitute.
Councillor Quinn, could I make a comment, or through the Mayor, to Councillor Quinn, I'd like to make a comment. If you're getting any people at St Vinny's that are struggling with the paperwork for the 13 weeks assistance, then if they haven't got an accountant that can help them, or they don't want to go to their accountant for whatever reason, then they should be contacting the Rural Council and Financial Services to get assistance to fill the forms in. They've got offices based in Albury. They can go to their home if required, and that's their role. Their role is to...
At no cost.
At no cost. Their role is to help people fill those forms in. So, you know, those that would have had rate notices posted to them, I think, got the flyer marked this time around the Rural Financial Counselling Service. Did that go in the rates?
Yes, we did put that in the final rates.
So look, I'd really encourage anybody, if they're speaking to someone whether it's bushfire or drought, and they're doing it tough, then we should be doing everything that we can possibly do to encourage them to contact the Rural Financial Counselling Service to get assistance to see whether they're entitled to the money, because the tolerances have been changed around off-farm income and those sorts of things. So the last thing you want is people self-assessing that, no, I'm not going to be entitled to something. They need to speak to the Rural Counselling Financial Service.
An argument, Madam Mayor, or anything like that, but there's no trouble in filling out the forms. There's been a fair few of them done by this person. But if they happen to be Victorian now, they'll be crossed out. And the vice, it's just, and they've made the effort, Mr GM, to come and see somebody in my outfit. They're not going to make the effort to go and see somebody else. Now, you can say it's their fault, but if you were burnt out 5 years ago, which some of them were up around Carabos, and it's happened again, you know, they're pretty thin. And the government ought to be told, and you can write a better letter than me.
Madam Mayor, I take up Councillor Quinn's point. It's difficult for people to make the first approach, let alone the second, and if there's any way they can be involved in something, that would be fantastic. But I also wonder, and this is with your indulgence, I really worry about the fact of the Department of Human Services Disaster Recovery Allowance, because you had to do 11. 10 the next day was when you got paid from there on. So it wasn't, you had to do more than 10 days. The volunteer firefighter payment, yeah, it has to be 11 days before you get paid. I'd be interested if we might at some stage contact our fire control centre, who keep records of who was there and who wasn't, and just see if anybody actually, how many they did, because they'll know who was out. And after that, they didn't do tags as they went out to say who was on?
Yeah, yeah.
It didn't happen at the initial outset.
No.
Okay, so maybe we can say,
Yeah.
I think if we could go to them and ask them, from the date when they commenced to be able to record that, could they advise us how many days people did and whether anybody actually meets this criteria? Yeah. If I can, sorry. Number 3 would be that an approach be made to the Fire Control Centre in Albury Hume Fire Control Centre, to gain statistics of the involvement of volunteers within our shire.
Councillor Knight, Councillor Parker.
I would say that statistic will be very few.
I
haven't found one person in our area that has actually applied, and I don't think they will, to be honest with you, because they think of it as a volunteer service. And I would agree with Councillor Quinn, there are a lot of people that are very, 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 which I'm very concerned about, mental health and financial situation.
Thank you. Councillor Quinn.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, another by the chair to the General Manager. The concept of this $300 a day for a volunteer firefighter, I want the captain to be able to sign off on that. If it goes to Albury, it's an embarrassment, or whatever you like to call it. And just again, I suggest you feed these ideas to Susan Lee. They're the ones that are supposed to work it out, sort of thing. But my whole concept is to try and cut the embarrassment out of people. Now, it's for those who haven't got things, it's a shock and embarrassment. I mean, you're completely not insured. And my partner this way here will say, but why on earth weren't they insured? And I'll say, because they're living from day to day. And but the bureaucrats upstairs don't understand that. And somehow or other, after this terrible disaster, if we can get that point across, it'll be something achieved.
All right, councillors, prepared to vote? Those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Corporate and Community, the quarterly budget review.
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Moved, seconded, Councillor Weston. Any, do you wish to make any comments? Oh, where is he? Mr Hart. I thought you'd gone home or gone to sleep. It's been so boring down there. Any comments? Or any questions of Mr Hart, councillors? Councillor Meyer, a question?
No comment, Madam Mayor. I generally commend the staff for putting together this sort of thing. It's getting late in the night.
Any comments? No? Councillor Parker?
Well, realistically, the deficit is just pretty much the natural disaster recovery, well, within a couple of thousand.
That's correct. Yeah.
All right, councillors, prepared to... You're looking a bit tentative. All right, prepared to vote. Those in favour? Carried. All in favour? Good. The amendment to fees and charges.
Move the recommendation.
Thank you. Seconder?
I'd second.
Councillor
I have a
Parker?
question. Oh, sorry.
Uh-huh.
I have a question.
Councillor Knight?
And I guess the question is why? Because it doesn't tell us in this that the revised fees and charges schedule for 2019-2020 incorporating the additional short-term be placed on. So we did that, and that's closed. It's proposed that a short-term licence application fee for Crown lands. Why, how frequently, or who uses the short-term licence application for Crown lands? Please explain. Thank you.
It's a new fee under the new Crown Lands Act in relation to, as it said, short-term licensing of Crown lands. Okay, and we under the new Crown Lands Act, we are the body that now manages those leases and licenses, whereas under the previous act it was managed by Crown Lands themselves. So we have to have the fee that's in the act in our fees and charges.
Should we then, and I'd ask the mover, should we then actually say as required by Crown Lands? Because at this rate it's us that's imposing this and people would not know why we can't. Even the motion.
But the reason why we're doing the fee was included in the report that was put to November for us to put it on display.
Is that the fee for an unused road, unfenced road?
No, that's separate. Yeah.
All right, councillors, prepared to vote. Those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Community Development Grant Program 2019-2020. Thank you. Councillor Quinn, Councillor Parker. Questions, comments? Prepared to vote. Those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Engineering, allocation of additional roads to the recovery funding.
Yeah, I'll move that.
Thank you. Councillor Hicks. Councillor Quinn. Any opposition? Oh, sorry.
Engineer, it's been slow coming, but it's being achieved.
Very good, very good. Satisfied customer down there. Prepared to vote? Those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Item number 1, the reconstruction.
Move the recommendation.
Oh, right, okay. The recommendation, yes. Councillor O'Neill and Councillor Parker. Oh, Councillor Shilg, sorry. I thought it was Councillor Parker's voice. Are there any comments or any opposition? No, I declare it carried. Environment and Planning, the proposed voluntary planning agreement, Gindra Solar Farm.
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Meyer and Councillor Knight. move them in a block? Councillor Meyer? There's 4 of them.
Councillor Meyer and Councillor Knight.
Any opposition to that? If not, I declare that carried. Thank you. Part B, received and note. Councillor Hicks. Any comments? And Councillor Parker, any comments, questions? Councillor Meyer? Okay.
They can be moved in a block.
Can I just get a bit of comment about the new software package, Live Pro? It's reading well. Is it still stacking up?
Councillor Knight, can you turn off your mic?
Oh, I'm sorry.
And Councillor Parker.
Yes, it's very early days. It's been live now for maybe a bit over a week. But the customer service staff especially are finding it very useful, and I did witness the general manager asking for details of how to log into the system today, so it's being used at all levels of the organisation.
Good, because I did go into it myself and I was very surprised, and I thought, oh, this looks like we're into the 21st century. That's what I sort of thought, and I thought it looked like it was a hell of a lot easier to work than the previous arrangements. And you don't have to go digging too much.
Yeah, so look, the advantage for customer service staff is that hopefully all the customer service staff can go to the same point of access and get the same information. So as an example today, I got a phone call from Service New South Wales regarding the properties that were going to be eligible for the 3rd and 4th instalments of rates that had properties, homes, or damaged or destroyed. In the meantime, when I went to talk to the rates clerk about that, they'd received a phone call from a person who claimed that they would be eligible to it. So rather than every one of those calls being put through to me to explain what the process is, we can put that information on Live Pro. The Service New South Wales are going to provide a list to council based on the RFS assessments of the damage, and then then the council will get paid the money from Service New South Wales and will apply it to the rates. If we get any other people that think they're entitled to it, we can refer their name off to Service New South Wales. So all that information is available, I guess, at their fingertips, and they can relay that information directly to the customer rather than being put through to a few different people.
Just a question in terms of the valuations for residential blocks in Holbrook. Is that because of the asbestos houses that were they were acquired? Because there's only a 1.6% increase in residential average.
Yeah,
compared
that's
to the other
correct.
towns.
That's the primary reason that they're quoting. Yes, that there was what they deemed to be an oversupply of available land.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
On valuation, Madam Mayor, there'll be some interesting comments when these figures get out. There's been little letters go out to a lot of people questioning what sort of farmers they are. I can't remember. Well, if you're rural residential, you can't say you're farming. That's right. Apparently, even though I do a lot of farming, but the question is, what are you trying to achieve? And to put it bluntly, from a lot of ratepayers, who are you trying to catch?
Well, what we're trying to achieve, through you, Madam Mayor, is that we're trying to ensure that properties that are rated as farmland are actually viable farms, and the only properties that we're looking at in this review are properties that are rated as farmland that are less than 40 hectares. Because under the Local Government Act, if you have a rural property that is between 2 and 40 hectares and it's not being used for farmland and it's primarily being used as a residence, then it should be rated as rural residential. And we have a number of properties that are being rated as farmland at the moment that are less than 40 hectares. So they are the ones that we are concentrating on. We haven't sent letters to people who own 1,000 hectares because it's obviously a farmland. We're only focusing on those that we believe there would be many that should be rated as rural residential. This is coming as a result of an internal audit program project into rating. Done by council, done by our internal audit process.
Sorry, because I'm... So, assuming you got the letter, it means that forever and a day, our block, which is 2 point something hectares, has been, which we would never have been aware of, really. You just get your rates. So we've been there 35 years and the people who were on that block were there another 10 or 12 years before that, so...
Hasn't that been the rule forever and a day though? Like when I was rates clerk, like 18 years ago?
Yes, that's correct.
So...
Yep. The
lucky
issue,
you, lucky you.
The issue that we have is that where property that was formerly rated as farmland has been subdivided, the rating category hasn't been changed for the property for the individual allotments that have been created from the subdivision. Not in all cases, but I suspect in many.
There is, of course, the reverse, which is possible, which is someone has got a block that's less than 40 hectares who can substantiate he's a farmer. He or she. Thank you, Councillor Knight. And you know, I would have thought that if someone's got a block of land that's less than 40 hectares, but they're able to use primary production status through the tax office, that's one of the things that you would that they could use to substantiate their claim.
Would it be, is it advisable that now when we do subdivisions that we look at that?
Yes.
In a word. Thank you.
The letter clearly stated, though, if you're zoned rural residential, you couldn't be farmland.
No, it was a bit more explicit than that.
That's exactly what it was, because...
Unless you can demonstrate you are farmland.
That's right.
There is the ability within the Act that allows you the opportunity to demonstrate that you are a farmer. And people have got the option to do that under the Local Government Act. And they can through this process too. And we'll assess those when they come in.
Better send me another letter, David, please.
All right.
Can I ask a question about people and culture, just to get off the rating subject? I go through it, and once again, I have to say that I would love us to be looking at how we can engage across the whole of the community, not just those that go to a particular school, as in Billabong High, or can access a particular bus to get them to a youth meeting or the like. And please, can we do an investigation and do maybe a costing to see how difficult is it nowadays for people to just phone in and be seen and take part in a meeting, so that other communities of young people might actually get involved in the youth council by phoning in and being seen in that manner. And the other thing under people and culture that I was interested in, and I know it's been raised by a local ratepayer to where I live, is that where are the locations for senior citizens events and weeks? And it's a seniors week, is it this week or next week? Yes, and how do we start promulgating that out to some of the smaller communities where there are elderly people who, again, aren't located necessarily in Holbrook, Henty or Culcairn?
Want me to respond to that? Well, I can. So, you're not necessarily referring to the People and Culture report. It's the youth report, youth programs.
Yes, but it
Yep.
talked in there about some of the youth programs that were in place and health and wellbeing and what's taken place in that over the last, period of time. So yeah, it's partly that and part also of other sections of the Part A report that talk about where we conduct different types of activities across the Shire, and I'm just hoping we could try to involve more people other than those that are in the larger towns.
Look, it's a valid point, Councillor Knight. The difficulty that we have is engaging with the young people who don't attend school in the Shire. That's the difficulty. They're fragmented, and for our youth people to go to, say, James Fallon High or wherever, then they're basically they're trying to target an audience where 98% of the kids don't live in the Shire. So you
Now,
go to
what
school
I'm
there.
suggesting is, if in some way we might get it out to our young people that if they can't, or our elderly, if they can't attend, particularly young people, youth council will be involved in it because they are out of the general gist of the Shire, that they might well be able to be part of a meeting that starts to take place at about 4:30, when most of them are getting off buses and can actually go to their computer and log in and be part of the meeting.
That's a valid point, and I'll talk to our youth officer around live streaming possibilities. Perhaps they could even utilise this equipment that's here, or Zoom or whatever. Yep. And sorry, in relation to senior citizens, we have, and we'll mention this when we start to talk about budget in the workshops down the track. We have moved that the senior citizens budget allocation that we've always had in there into the library area, and I've sort of tasked our Susan Kane, our librarian, with ensuring that appropriate senior activities are undertaken through the libraries and utilising that budget allocation.
All right, how are we going? We're just about...
Well, that's Part B.
That's Part B. C.
I'll move C and D
Thank you. Councillor Hicks and Councillor Parker. Any opposition? No opposition? I declare it carried. Thank you. All right. And D? Yeah. All right. We're nearly there, councillors. No matters of urgency? No. All right, we're going to have to close the meeting, and I would have to ask Ellen from the media if she would vacate the room, please. And the time is 8:30. Sorry?
To close the meeting until we get back on the screen.
Oh, okay. Will you tell me when? Where are we? There being no further business, the meeting has closed at 8:36 p.m. Thank you.
Just a comment out of left field, there will be a coronial inquiry into the tragedy
Yes.
that happened in Morven. And that beak, is over here recording, that beak will, well, it doesn't matter, I don't care if the judiciary don't like my terms, we'll put out a megabucks page, but it'll wipe out 90% of our trucks. So start budgeting, Mr.
Not necessarily so, Councillor Knight. You're right that we pay a contribution based on our contributions over the last 20 years, which started a few years ago, so it's probably the last 20 years when it started. But we pay a set percentage of the Rural Firefighting Fund. So if the Rural Firefighting Fund jumped to fund all these trucks that Councillor Quinn's talking about, so will our contribution.
Yeah, what about the $56 million that is going to be going towards them?